Hello, this is Talking Europe on France 24. My guest today is Gabrielius Landsbergis, Lithuania's foreign minister. Hello, thanks for coming in to see us.
Hello.
Now, today, Lithuania may be one of the smaller EU states with a population of fewer than 3 million people, but it has propelled itself to the fore of European foreign relations in recent months. In the summer, the government authorised Taiwan to set up a diplomatic office in Vilnius under the name of the Taiwanese Representation Office, this angering Beijing. Meanwhile, within Europe, Lithuania has in recent days declared a state of emergency on its border with Belarus and at camps hosting migrants who've crossed that border. I would like to start off with that news about this state of emergency. What does this state of emergency mean? Why has it been imposed?
Well, first of all, the situation is rather dire. We've been thinking that it might happen because we've seen the numbers of the migrants or the people with intention to migrate or to cross the border illegally growing in Belarus and in Minsk. The last numbers were from 10,000 to 20,000 people who were situated in the bigger cities of Belarus. So obviously there was an idea that they might cross the border in one group. With the help from Belarusian authorities, we've seen that they are now on the border, now on the border of Poland. And it's very likely that in a few days they might appear on the border of Lithuania. Therefore, the officials need more instruments, legal instruments, how to really secure the border, which we have a lot of, almost 700 kilometers.
It is a long border, as you say. One specific part of the state of emergency permits border guards to use, and I'm quoting here, proportionate physical violence. What does that mean?
Well, basically there is the possibility of incidents is quite high. We're seeing people who are angry. We're seeing people who are being pushed from the other side. We're seeing that Belarusian authorities are using dogs and other instruments in order to mobilize the groups and then force them into the huge border crossing. Therefore, we have to be sure that our border officials really have the possibility to stop people on the border if they're making some aggressive breakthrough.
Now, as you mentioned, it does seem that Belarusian authorities are pushing these people in various means, as you say, across the border. One might ask the question, is repelling them, the right thing to do, and is it the legal thing to do under international law? My team's spoken to the UNHCR about the fact that border guards in Lithuania have already said that they have been pushing people back over the border. UNHCR told us that this would be a violation of Lithuania's obligations under international law. Is this really the right policy?
Well, what we are doing is actually a rerouting. We made legal ways for people to apply for asylum. And one of them is our embassy in Minsk, which accepts the applications of people who would like to get an asylum in Lithuania. We're actually the only country doing this out of all countries affected by this forced migration problem. So therefore, there are legal ways, and we need to be very clear about this, that the only way getting into Europe is the legal way. And the people, basically, since we have to be very clear about the situation as well, in geographic, Belarus doesn't have a border with Iraq. Belarus doesn't have a border with Syria. So that means that they took active steps to bring people in from the Middle East and push them to the border, which changes the situation quite dramatically.
I'm just wondering, though, if these people, we've got pictures on our screens, in fact, of some of the people in woods in Belarus, for example, if they actually know that there's this possibility to apply for asylum via the Lithuanian representation in Minsk, and indeed under international law, it would seem that it is not permitted to push people back once that they've arrived on your territory.
The thing is that, again, we are not allowing them in, especially when it is the case of instrumentalised migration. We have to be very clear. This is not a migration crisis that we've seen in 2015. These are not people fleeing from war. These are people who bought the tickets under the pretense to migrate. They knew what they're doing. They knew where they are, and they are asking for a passage to Germany and probably to France as well, but that's even longer distance. So basically, we have an obligation to guard the border.
So no change on that policy?
Well, we need change. We need change. And we've been in discussion with the same institutions that you mentioned. And we're asking their assistance, since, as far as we know, Belarus is still a part of United Nations, that the humanitarian corridor would be organized in Belarus, that the people would be allowed to leave. And now where the groups are near the Polish border, there are airports as well in the Belarusian side. We've talked with the Iraqi government. They are ready to organize the planes. We are ready to do the same, and I'm sure that we would find many partners who would help people out of the forests of Belarus and back to their home countries, explaining them that basically they've been deceived. They've been told that they will get to Germany, but they are spending their cold nights in the forests of Belarus.
Belarus President Lukashenko denies that he is intentionally sending these people to EU borders in response to EU sanctions against his government.
Well, basically, all the evidence shows differently. We know that there was a change of visa policy. That means it was made so much easier for people to apply for Belarusian visa. Basically, it's almost a free passage to arrive to Minsk. We know that there is a huge assistance for them to get to the border. And now even the groups are organized with the help from the special security forces of Belarus. So he organized this route. It was not made as in 2015, where people were fleeing the atrocities of war. This was organized by a state of Belarus.
German authorities have been calling for some time for sanctions against airlines that they say are involved in bringing people into Belarus. The president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has been asking EU states for new sanctions, state sanctions against Belarus. Alexander Lukashenko, though, has retorted that his country is not seeking a fight, and he's warned that any conflict would draw in Belarus's ally, Russia. Does that give pause for thought? Do you take that as a threat?
Well, it is. We've known that for a while. That since the Belarusian president, or so-called president, because he lost the election last year, he doesn't answer to his people. He doesn't answer to international institutions. He only answers to Russia, to Russia's president. So basically, it's obvious that he will try and get Russia's president into the whole thing.
Do you take that as a serious military threat, for example?
Well, there is a possibility of escalation, especially when the military is involved on the border. But my hope is that if European Union still gets its act together and we can really formulate a list of very concrete and specific sanctions that would stop the companies from flying in the people into the Minsk airport. And one idea that we've been flowing around was that we could sanction the Minsk airport itself. That means that the companies who are flying into Europe would not choose Minsk airport as their destination. And there are such companies. So we want to persuade in all ways possible for companies not to choose Minsk, not to bring people in because they're participating in the trafficking operation.
All right. I feel we must move on, unfortunately, from this very important situation, but to another big diplomatic situation regarding Lithuania, as well as Taiwan and China that I mentioned earlier. Just to explain to our viewers, Taiwan has representations in various EU states, but they all go by the name of the capital, Taipei, which avoids irritating China. Now, the office in your capital, Vilnius, however, is the first one to use the name of Taiwanese Representation Office, something which is seen as defying the One China policy, under which China sees Taiwan as part of China. Now, are you trying to irritate Beijing?
No. Absolutely not. It has nothing to do with our attitude towards China. We are adamant that we maintain One China policy, as it is defined in their international obligations. I have to correct what you said. This is not a diplomatic representation. This is same as 18 other EU countries have. This is more of a trade cultural representation, and we don't think that the name is an issue. The name was asked by the Taiwanese themselves, and we believe that they have a right in a European country to choose a name for their representation.
China has already taken a lot of action in response to this. They've recalled their ambassador to Lithuania. They want Vilnius to do the same. Beijing suspended freight train services to your capital. It's a response that's designed to attract attention in Lithuania, cause economic disruption, if not pain. You're going to stick by the decision, though?
We're going on with our decision. We're still in consultations with our partners in Europe and US and as well in Indo-Pacific about how to do it better. But I'm quite sure that the decisions will be announced shortly. And basically, this is a very important case for Lithuania, and not only for Lithuania, but for other, probably I would say, Western countries as well. Because if we give into coercion, which is not a diplomatic way to solve disputes between the country, that means that the next country, the same instruments will be used against next country. And who knows which country that will be. You know, we've seen what happened in Australia. Now, same thing's happening in Lithuania. So basically, any of us in EU could be next.
I know that you visited Washington in September. The US Secretary of State pledged, quote, ironclad support for Lithuania over this. What about the rest of the European Union, though? How much support are you getting there?
Well, we're feeling a lot of support from Paris, and it's very important. I think that if we're talking about broader support, so the political support is there, but I think that EU is still in process of formulating its what I would call China policy. You know, we still haven't decided in European Union about the format under which we will talk with China. For example, many countries have their strong bilateral ties and they use them. Some of the countries in Central and Eastern Europe have the format that was previously known as a 17+1 up until the point Lithuania withdrew from the format, because we adamantly believe that EU has to have a very coherent policy about how can we approach China on the political, economic, humanitarian, many other issues that we have so many on our agenda.
All right, Gabrielius Landsbergis, that's where we'll have to leave it. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to you for watching as well. Hope to see you soon here on Talking Europe.